Hi YouTubers, my name is Tanvi and I'm a reporter with K2 News. Since President Donald Trump has said that ICE facilities are under siege attack by Antifa, we wanted to show you what it actually looks like right now. Let's start at the corner right here. We got some signage of people protesting more federal officers here and immigration enforcement. There's some writing on the fence over there that's been controversial. It says, "We got the guillotine." Some people say it's a call to violence. Other people say it's protest art that harkens back to a revolutionary time. Now, if you want to walk with me this way, I want to show you the ICE building. It is completely boarded up. It used to be covered in vandalism with anti-ICE messaging, but it seems as though once federal officers increased in numbers, this building was also boarded up. Now, I want to show you what's actually happening on the ground. You can see there's a line of protesters, and it says that they've been here for at least 100 days. People have been camping here for months, and we've been talking to protesters on the ground, and they tell us that they've started out protesting increased immigration enforcement. That is, more deportations happening on the watch of the new federal government. But now the protests are taking a different shape. They're protesting the increase in federal officers here and the National Guard troops that are going to be deployed. I'm going to step out of the frame for a bit, and I'm going to show you a little bit more in terms of location. So you can see behind the tents, there's a school called the Cottonwood School. That school is actually moved because the director of the school says there's been so much clash between protesters and ICE, and that gas was being deployed at the school, that it actually became a safety risk for students, and so they moved their school. A lot of history here. Also, if you move back this way with me, you can see on this pole, there's a lot of signage, and there's actually community guidelines because people living in the apartment complexes just across of ICE have been complaining that there's been too much gas deployment, munitions, and noise from protesters. So this area, it tells a lot of stories. By the ICE building, there's about 15 photographs of people who protesters say have been unjustly deported or taken from their families. And I don't even have to say this, it's very clear right now that the scene is not very active. There's not a lot of confrontation, there's peaceful protesting. But at nighttime is when those confrontations start to ramp up between protesters and federal immigration officers that are coming into this building. Last night, we've reported that at least 6 people were arrested by federal officers for assaulting federal officers. So there's been a debate and talk about whether Portland police is doing enough, whereas the federal government is saying they're not doing enough. The Bureau says they are, and that the situation does not require the need for federal help. If you're just tuning in, I'm Tanvi Verma. I'm a reporter for K2 News, and I'm giving you what's going down on the ground outside the ICE facility, given that President Donald Trump has said this place is under siege attack by Antifa. So let's start at the corner. Right here, you can see some of the signage on the fence. It says, "We got the guillotine." This is one of the more controversial pieces of graffiti or vandalism. Some saying it's a call to violence, others saying it's protest art. Then, of course, you can see somebody in a costume saying ICE is a plague, dressed in black and like a mime. Another sign talking about upholding the Constitution. A lot of people here and throughout the city think that deploying the National Guard here is unconstitutional because they say it's an overreach by the federal government. They say that the states should be able to regulate their own city and to police their own community. Now, if you pan over this way with me, I do want to show you what the ICE building looks like. It is boarded up. It wasn't always boarded up. In fact, it was covered with anti-ICE messaging from vandalism, but it appears that since federal officers increased in amount, they've actually boarded this all up. And then right in front of the ICE building, forgive me, there's a truck going past. Right by the ICE building, there's about 15 or so images of people who protesters say have been wrongfully deported or taken from their families. That really speaks to the narrative portion of what's going on here. And if you pan over this way by the railroad tracks, you can see there's actually a vigil set up with some photographs. This is for people who the protesters think have been unfairly deported and taken from their families. And actually by the vigil, behind the vigil, there's a sign saying that staying there and camping there is trespassing. This really goes, again, to some of the back and forth clashes between law enforcement and protesters. There's been some sort of regulation to try to tell people not to camp out there, and protesters have been doing so as resistance, they say. Now let's move on to more signage. You can see there's a sign that says 100 days protesting ICE. It is true. Protesters have been here for months. We've been seeing it on the ground. They actually started protesting increased federal immigration enforcement. That is, more removals, more deportations. But now the protest is more than just that. They're protesting what they say is government overreach when it comes to deploying the National Guard and when it comes to adding more federal officers here at the ICE facility. You can see there's some very expressive signs. There looks to be a lot of food. There's tents because people are committed to staying here. There's even signs that say resist to survive. And in talking to people who've been protesting, they basically all say similar things about how it's important to stand up for families. I spoke to one woman who was protesting here who said that her father was deported while in court for a traffic citation. And so these sorts of things are what we're seeing more under the Trump administration. We're seeing an increase, at least anecdotally, of people being removed. And that's where this protest really started. People wanted to see ICE reduce or stop entirely their removals of people who are parts of this community. Now, we will be here for the next few hours and we will keep tracking what's going on. Like I said earlier, it's actually at night when protests and clashes between protesters and the DHS officers start to pick up. Last night, there was at least 6 arrests, including assaults on officers. And the FBI has been posting arrests that they've made on similar charges. I'm going to step out of the frame again, give you a look at what it's looking like right now. It's a sunny day. Even when it was raining, protesters were out. We're just going to show you a little static shot of what's going on.